Welcome to this edition of Journals of Spiritual Discovery, brought to you by spiritualteachers.org. I'm your host, Sean Nevins. Hi, and welcome to this month's edition of Journals of Spiritual Discovery. Just wanted to read you a poem from my new book. It's called Hydroglyphics, Reflections on the Sacred. And it's a collaboration between myself and Phaedra Greenwood. She did the photographs for the book. And this one is called Frost Revelation. The end begins like this. The self, etched like a delicate line of frost across a clear and deep expanse, pauses by the power of will, and is held by grace until a tinkling bell of light, robed in clearest white, melts all thought and sight. What seemed a sense of lack, a darkness so compact, reveals a golden find at last. Yet, what is the source of that? He asked. The mind racks itself to explain, rises even higher to remain, and finds a dazzling dark that contains all the worlds in its reign. A blackness on high, a thundering stillness to the eye, a world of gods, another land, holding all in its hand. Yet, what is the source of that? He asked. The minute unwraps its plenitude, eternity unfurls its grasp, and serenity lets go its mask, while all that ever is or was or will be succumbs to infinity. The sense of dreaming drops, and the rhythm, the everlasting rhythm of being, stops. I hope you enjoyed that. It's a good book. I would appreciate it if you could pick up a copy of it. It's available on Amazon, of course. Again, it's called Hydroglyphics. It's not hieroglyphics, it's hydroglyphics. Hydroglyphics. Poems about water and the depth that water brings forth in us. You can also get a copy directly from me if you just go to spiritualteachers.org, check out the menu, and you'll see my new books are there. And you can get a signed copy of that one, as well as my book Subtraction, directly from me. It's a little cheaper that way than getting them on Amazon. But however you buy one, I would appreciate it if you would. So, this month's guest is actually connected to poetry. And I think that's why it sprung into my mind to read one of my poems to kick off this episode. And this month's guest is John Davis. John Davis actually passed away in 1984. So what we have this month is an interview recorded about a year before his death by an old TAT member from way back in the day. And this recording has been exchanged amongst TAT members for many years. John Davis is also featured on spiritualteachers.org. You'll find him in the 2-star category, which, contrary to popular opinion, 2 stars doesn't mean that I don't recommend the teacher. It's just a convenient way of sorting a rather long list of people into what I think are the possibilities that you might get from an in-depth study of their work. And really the reason that John Davis is 2 stars is because the only thing we know about him comes from this interview and a short article that was written, again, many years ago. The TAT Foundation used to publish a print journal, and there was an article in there which had some of John Davis's poetry in it, as well as a few facts about his life. So those are the only two things that we know. Although I've heard that John Davis published a book, privately printed. I've never been able to locate a copy of it in all these years. I actually wrote a screenplay about John Davis at one point. Again, that's something that you can find on spiritualteachers.org. If you search for John Davis, you'll find my review of him and a link to that screenplay. But really, I did some historical work, some digging to find out what I could, and found out very little about him. He was an attorney. He was briefly involved in politics for Robert Kennedy's run for president. But that's about all I know. Other than that, I do know that this interview passes a quality in his words that you can just feel the depth in the guy. And then when he reads his poems, and even he says, well, it's not great poetry. And I would probably say the same thing about my poetry. It's not great poetry, but it's conveying something real, something true. And I think that you pick that up in Davis's poetry as well, especially from the way that he reads it. At the beginning of the interview, you'll even hear him say something along the lines of, my goal is to someday be the greatest orator in the world. And unfortunately, he never achieved that goal, but you could tell that he was working toward it. And he understood the power of the voice and the message the voice can carry, something beyond just the words. So I hope you enjoy it. There'll be a few show notes for this episode. Davis mentions a few books during his interview. Given that this is many years have passed, it may be a little hard to find those. So I will dig up links to all those books that I can, as well as anything else of interest that he mentions, and you'll find those in the show notes. So you can go to spiritualteachers.org and go to the podcast page, and you'll find a link to the John Davis interview. Hope that all has been well for all of you. And I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate the opportunity to share something of importance with you. Stay safe out there, and hopefully we will hear one another again soon. Bye.
And one of the major problems that I've had, particularly as an attorney, has been my speech. And particularly say at night when I'm tired, because I have to constantly concentrate, keep watching in order to do it. And if I get particularly tired, that'll happen. See, and one of the things I want to do is I want to someday be able to be the greatest orator in America. And I'll say, I want to do that because of the fact it would be something, if you knew how I spoke to begin with, you'd ask anybody, even a year or so ago, even if you asked Dr. Carter, he was the psychiatrist at Western University Medical School, after doing the psychological testing that the Supreme Court, their expert, used to determine that I was totally and permanently disabled and incapacitated. And then he was the same doctor who said, I'm a reasonable doctor, I had recovered. But at that time, if you were American then, my speech is good and better. But if I'm able sometimes, so that some young kid is watching TV or etc., and he doesn't know that that's a brain damaged person, that's somebody that was on the street. But that great orator, he could be like that. And then mommy can say, well, do you know? And that's the way you influence people in this world. So as I say, that's what I need to do, and it's always good for me to be recorded. To keep myself in that way. Let me do this. If you want me to, while we're talking, you give me some introductory things. Tell me what your interest is. And is this just a personal interest, or are you trying to compile some work? Or I mean, obviously it's both.
Yeah.
But are you working now specifically towards anything? That's a national inquiry. I'm just getting some stuff out.
My personal interest is that that experience that you had is something that, to put it bluntly, I personally am trying to see if it's possible for somebody like me to have that also, find that
experience to have.
Yeah, and also with that, that type of experience is not really taken creditably by either science or psychology at all. They don't even count that as being valid, as being something real. And
anyway, it's as real as can be, and the thing, there's no way of validating it. See, there's no way that they can fit it into the systems, and as a consequence, I started to say, and then we got sidetracked coming in, is that in many ways science and religion have now reversed themselves from the time that Galileo, he stood in Padua, and with these tall, added, educated leaders of the day, he said, well, he looked, he got a telescope, and he was trying, he looked in it and he saw little planets at Jupiter. And of course, if this was the center of the universe, the planets would go around the Earth as Jupiter went around the Earth. But he noticed that the planets went around Jupiter. See, not a great observation. Well, with that little experiment, that destroyed the whole heliocentric, geocentric concept. See. And don't you remember what he said? He said, well, you don't have to believe me. Just get down here and look through that telescope. And they said, we're not going to look through that. Right. I just got through reading a book. Got to write this down because it's probably the latest, best book on what we're talking about and on the fact that science will not accept these things. It's called Einstein's Space and Van Gogh's Sky. It's by Henry Margot. He's the one who wrote the book Scientific Nature, Reality, Realm of Science. I think he's from Yale. And by a psychologist, Lawrence Leshane. It's just that. Okay. He learned. He got some books on alternate realities. Are you familiar with that? Yeah. Okay. Well, and Henry Margot, he wrote probably one of the best books on explaining the scientific paradigm. And the book's just out. And they were talking about who's the great scientist, the German scientist in the late 19th century, Helmholtz.
Helmholtz.
Right. Well, he was talking about this. He said that if he from some credible would you get that? Let me go in there and get you some of these medical reports. Helmholtz said that if a friend of his or a fellow scientist would tell him something that would contradict locality, or, the accepted things, or if he saw it with his own senses, that he would not accept it. See? And of course, this usually happens when you have a scientific paradigm or anything that's in threat. So you have to remember with the Catholic Church, it was only late, in the 19th century that they came out with papal infallibility. Right. Innocent III didn't need that. But now that let me tell you that I gave you, this was a summary report given by Dr. Paul Crawford, who I got to know during this period of time. But what it has a summary of some of the medical reports and the EEGs, etc., all the way through it. See what I mean? And it will give you, like, for instance,
what I'd be interested to have you talk about too is I read the article in the paper about you, but I'd like to hear it from you. You know, your story, what happened to you, and the actual experience.
Well, I'll talk to you some about it. You know,
Okay.
It's one of those things that's if you want to find the best I've seen read of it, read Black Elk Speaks. You ever heard that?
Yeah, I read that in college.
Okay, well, you remember what Black Elk said when he said he saw more that night, saw more in that vision than he'd ever be able to tell. Did you see it on the That's Incredible?
No.
Okay, you got a video cassette recorder?
I'm going to be getting one shortly.
Okay, if you get one, find out if it's a beta or a VHS.
It'll be VHS.
Okay, I've got a copy of both, and they did an awful good job. Both the people were of a spiritual. One was American Indian, the director, and then one of the producers there was. Both of them were of a nature to try to catch it. They went up there, got the lighting in, and there's a small scene in there that's right close at it. It's got the same. They're going to be, I think, next May. This coming May, they went up there to shoot it. They didn't, get anything. Didn't have a camera work. Went up there to where the site was, and there's going to be something on PM Magazine, maybe for 6 minutes. You don't know what they end up doing. But talk to the thing. But see, what had happened, to give you the background, is that I had, as you can see, a progressively degenerating circumstances. I had finally, during this time, I had lost my family, lost everything, and I had a friend, a Dr. Edward Lewis, who hasn't been maybe the most successful, but I had known him to begin with, and he would let me come up and talk to him. Yeah. I didn't charge him anything. Medical part of it. Appreciate that. So. And so what had happened is I had finally on my birthday, July the 12th, the Supreme Court had entered an order permanently suspending my license. And I knew they were going to, because I know I had to fight. I didn't have an attorney, appointed attorney, didn't have anything. And so I had been arrested in jail. I'd been arrested. So I was in front of the judge, Judge Hay down there. While I was down there, they served me to take my license. You got to remember, I'm then in my 40s. And that was, and I had fought awful hard to get license. I had, when I was young, I had been born with a pretty high IQ, and I had always pretty well taken care of it. I've always did well. It was an awful blow for a long time for me to ever admit that was wrong. See, because that was my crutch. I always, any other way, you said they were very strong points. So, and I was a highly intellectual person. As a consequence, I was a person who mysticism was just mysticism. It didn't make any sense. It doesn't close to it. And I tried to utilize, I would try to intellectualize my emotions, other things. I'm exaggerating to limited extent. And Dr. Carter, I'm sure, would tell you that personality I probably forgot. And see, I had then lost everything. The one thing I did have, and then I had to acknowledge it. And so what happens when your license is suspended? It's suspended indefinitely, but you can once each year, at intervals of not less than a year, you can apply if medically your conditions change such that the suspension can be lifted. Mine was so that they said that I couldn't function outside an institutional setting, and I wouldn't be institutionalized. And one of the things I tried to do was I was afraid partly of being put in jail, but primarily being a lobotomy. Yeah, whether that was correct, but, you know, and certainly there were times when I was paranoid, you know, certainly there were times, you're probably too young to remember, but my law partner, Governor Barron, that was the governor that had the last, had the last political organization in the state, and that was the governor finally went to jail. And they had in the 60s, we had in West Virginia a combination of Watergate and McCarthyism. You know, the Red Bay, when people were just hounded, you know, just unmerciful. Both of them were true. But so anyhow, as a consequence, I went up to see Dr. Lewis, to talk to him, and he would treat me as a human being. Very often back then, at the time, I remember times I've had people, doctors, push me to the ground. You know, I had one psychiatrist push me to the floor one time. I was screaming, I couldn't control myself. I get these seizures, but they wouldn't bilateralize. You know, so I'd be in it. It's unbearable pain. And I remember I was trying to get him to do what I don't know what. You know. And he pushed me to the floor, and he said, "You animal anymore. You go up howling because you can afford it. You don't think you can. You know. You go up to Spencer. You know. And I used to think that I'm not an animal. And I'd had the notion, perhaps all Charleston can't be wrong, you know. And maybe I'd be a healthy animal or something, you know. So anyhow, I go up to see Dr. Lewis, and he was talking to me in the daytime, and I had been staying up at the graveyard. All my life have infrequently frequented graveyard, because I found a place of solitude. When I was young, I would go up there, and that's a philosophical thing. Often I've looked for somebody that's 100 years of age, I just don't never seem to be running into it. But all my life I've done that. Various times I've gone up and drank that with people. But it's a place of solitude, and it's a place that doesn't bother me. And of course, by this time now, it's a place where the biggest thing I had concerned about is even if you're, they said, a tramp or a bum, technically I wouldn't, or technically somebody in my situation would have been offended by that. I was what you call a scuffler. A scuffler is not a bum, because a bum's given up. A scuffler is somebody who's the poor man's Tom Jones, you might say. When he gets up in the morning, he don't know where he's going to eat or where he's going to sleep at night. You know, he makes it through the day. See, because when you're scuffling, you're just trying to keep that, your head above the water. And you can't do much to, when you're on the street, that's one of the worst things about it. Anytime in a low economic situation, you've always got this pressure. It's hard to, think you're going to rehabilitate or anything along that line. And so I've been up to see Dr. Lewis, and I told him that my license had been suspended, and that I had to undertake to somehow get myself off the streets, and to stay no home now, and to keep it probably brings it home just as well as anything. Shoes.
Oh boy, save me.
And I still have a styrofoam rubber thing with I call it my home, that's what I slept on. So. But that's probably better than anything else gives you. Those shoes were there, and probably somebody was in there walking. But so I had talked to him, I wanted to know, and he finally looked at me and he said, "John, I'm not going to kid you, but you don't have a year to live. If you're ready for the box." And I'd never heard that phrase. That hit me right hard. And when he said that, I started going back. I myself, I could hear that calling. Couldn't say it in a word. I am more men ordinarily men, and I've been with not only well-known men, but men that you'd call men, whether they're well-known or not. And a woman will slowly wear out herself, but a man will go full stop. See, full stop. I've been in many fight with them, see, until they fall. They fall. Very often if they quit work, or they retire, like football coach, Bear Bryant, they die. But they go and then they fall. And in the first 2 seconds before you see them fall, you look at them, they conquer the world. And they are like the Frenchman said about the Germans, in the First World War. They said the Germans, have reached their extremity. Victory belongs to whoever survives the outlying self. Well, I'm apparently not that way. Understand? I wear like a woman. Understand? And I often thought to myself, God, he'll go on forever. See? And I'll just be here, go on forever, and I'll never stop, and it'll never get better, And during this period of time, so I'm going up to God, great God. During this period of time, I began to have in my life, I would consider myself atheistic in ways. Sometimes I used to have this saying that I would ask somebody, "You believe in God?" If you say you do, I don't. If you say you don't, I do. But I had begun to become aware of a force. I'm trying to put it together now. So you see, over the years, it'll take me some time, to be aware of a force in the universe, which I could best identify with the traditional religions, with Islam. See, and a Muslim will understand. I think this is why all the great religions in the West started in the desert. But there's one thing about the desert. See, you risk meeting God. You can't hardly help but see it. There's not much out there, but you and him. And I began to become very much a sense of that. Beforehand, I felt as the cry as a stranger and afraid in a world I never made. I didn't particularly feel that I was afraid. I felt that there's no sense in talking about truth and justice and beauty and these small things unless you admit the big things in life. And one of the big things in life seemed to me that there was no personal afterlife in any sense, and therefore there wasn't any personal God in any sense, which would put me either an atheist by Christian concepts or a good Buddhist. See? But my feelings were that it was an alien world, and that the world was alien to man. Man-made civilization, and life was as George Santayana said when he was criticizing Henri Bergson. He said, "What is this élan vital?" That a few degrees temperature wouldn't remove from the universe. See, and it's slowly become to me. I used to cite it all the time. I remember that. What is this? It's life. It's force. And I happened to start beginning to occur to me, but it is just exactly those degrees. See, that's the other end of the story. And where I beforehand, you might say, again, reconstructing this, not just for tonight, I'm reconstructing it in my life to understand it. So that's what I mean by that. I think you might say, as somebody, as a polytheist, I was a polytheist. You understand? I never thought of just one alien force out there. It was just an alien, it was just a Newtonian universe. See, in a Hobbesian world. Although I had these feelings, I felt that I used to say it this way, if God didn't write the Sermon on the Mountain was written. So if God didn't do it, who did it? Man did it. So God's in man, you might say. something like now the great Greek Hatzanjakis. Are you familiar with him, the great Greek poet and Gordon the Greek?
Kazantzakis.
Yeah. And who has that concept, and probably was alive as well, as any, he was alive as well as the flame burning him as strong as it did in any writer, And Zorba the Greek, Zorba is one of my heroes. Zorba was an actual man. He was never met. But what you want to read is his Odyssey, the modern sequel to the Odyssey. If you want to read his big work, greatest poem in the 20th century. But I had these feelings, see, but I began to get this sense, Muslim sense, if you'll notice, you'll see in another room, where you'll see those. I began to get this sense. And I think you begin to, and later I'll explain to you, is in this experience, what I began to have, and I might write it out for you, so you might I have to talk to you and get a feel for it and see how far I'm going to and how far I'm not, and how far I feel like that. It's a sense of a profoundly sense of other. See, of other than whatever I'm identifying my own personality with, see. And by this time, my personality is pretty well beat down. You see what I mean? In terms of, I was pretty realistic on the thing. So you have to remember that one thing, some of the studies that they've had of depressed people, they notice that depressed people, of course, do not see the future as bright as optimistic people. And you'd say that is, the reason that they do not see it properly or correctly is because that they're depressed. But they found out that depressed people see the future much better. It's the optimists, see, who do not see it, see, and therefore survive in it, see, and pass on their genes to other people who don't see the future, see. But there have been some scientific, and I can give you some sites on that later on, some scientific studies on it. Very closely. That's not just something that Ogden Nash should come up with. But anyhow, so what I did, I went out to the graveyard, and I'll get you you have to videotape that they put that thing. I don't know what they do. Put that thing out on the. Because I don't think I'll be doing that many more times. But there's a specific place. If you get the one, they just magic almost the way they taught it in the That's Incredible thing. So I was walking down there, it was getting late at night, and I was walking towards the older part of the graveyard, towards the Parker Field. I was thinking, it wouldn't be very long. I'd be buried up there. And I wouldn't have nobody know my name. And then and you have to remember there was in me, I'm sure, like there is in everybody, the Damascus sense that you've got. The desire to fall down there, you understand? Fall down there, hit and rise. And that life doesn't really validate it until that happens. I can remember with my father, who, I don't want you to, I'm telling you this for your information, because, some of these other things, I wouldn't want you to use this. But my father was a very successful, self-made man who impressed me very much in life. Psychologically, you could say, you could put things in on that. That's dangerous. But he always had this Damascus feeling until he was saved. And he was a literal believer in Christ. One time I can remember one of the shocking things. One of the things that shocked me into atheism, or polyatheism, was that he once told me that, he said, well, John, there isn't any heaven, what's the sense of being good? See, which gives you a very good reason why he should believe in heaven. That gives you the very best reason in the world that everybody should believe in heaven. So, but see what I mean? But he always had this feeling that, that he'd never had that experience and he wasn't saved. And I think that's also a very true thing. Very true thing. Because we all yearn for that. So. Because what I'm getting into, what I can best equate what happened to me, and I've come at it several ways, is traditionally been held by what's generally called the perennial philosophy. The mystical tradition, which is found in all great religions. There's one good rule: the orthodoxies separate, and the mystics unite. But in this experience, you can see the thing. But as I say, I had a profound sense, let's say, of the other. I had begun to almost. This is the problem that you may find with it's partly the Christians are going through this guru thing. And I understand why the Christians are going through the gurus, because Jesus doesn't want it. See? But finally, a man is going to be a man, finally realized nobody's good for him. Between you and the big boy, I used to try to say, me and the universe. And we're using other terms, God's far and away the best, and most people begin to accept using them. But what I've done, let me just go through and give you some of the descriptions. I was walking down there, and there's an angel, big angel, 6, 7 foot, even a cross behind it. And we might go up there. We drive up on the way back. I'll drive up there before we get through. But if the gates close, I'll start to. I want to do that. If things are right, you might feel something. But, and I walked by there, and I thought I heard the word listen. And stop. And I can show you. I then had a series of profound spiritual knowing. Profound. The important thing to understand was that right at that moment, certainly there was a gnawing inside. I'm sure would have been. See what I mean? Would have been, that I wanted out of what I was in, see. But there wasn't this time. You see what I mean? This was not somebody on their knees, begging, praying. You've probably heard sometimes with any time that you have the aha experience or you have a religious one, it's when after you give up, immediately after you give up. But even with that, you might say it was that. But you see what I mean? But I had never anticipated. It didn't even occur to me ever, in my rational mind at all that that anything could happen whereby I would be changed in an instant, overnight. I mean, for instance, I had this. I don't know what it was. It's difficult. It's so difficult to explain psychological pain. Unless most psychiatrists don't understand it. When they see somebody say they stop them going crazy, and they don't see anything bother them. I've seen you just have to understand it. But I also had, and it had to be equated to the neurologically, because I didn't have it beforehand. And it's difficult. I might maybe try to write it out. But it was an incapacity for the brain, for me to stop and concentrate on any one thing. It's like a mind that's distracted. And obviously it can be, because as I say, I can concentrate far better than a baby can. So this baby it's distracted some way. See what I'm talking about? But what I'm trying to say is I had a series of experiences going throughout the night. And each time, it's like a round. And they seem to be 7 now, but you have to remember this. One of the best things I should do is for somebody like you, or somebody that's willing to say, here is an ideal situation where there's quite a bit of paperwork, and you're never going to find an instance where you've got somebody by chance that happened to be an old Newtonian physicist and doesn't believe in any of this. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not likely to go. And probably no one has ever been that far down. It's ever come back. Yeah. And probably, I don't know. Yeah. But anything I never, is final. I can tell you, final. I remember I thought that if if I could, I remember I often thought if I could just get back off the streets or something, and I could get some type of drugs or something that would control me. You know what I mean? That was the most. I knew I couldn't do anything steady. I mean, if you had asked me to sit here, close my, or sit here and watch that thing go around, and let's say think of nothing, so I couldn't do 10 seconds. I can remember one time I tried to close my eyes, whether it be transcendental meditations, like 20 seconds, stay home or something. But at night, as I finally got away, I could feel it, say my brain reorganized. No, once, the next day, one time I almost had a seizure. I could sense it. I started drawing up. I was in a lot of stress one time, and I thought I was going to, but I didn't. I never had another seizure. From them, because I had many ups and downs, a long way. It's just like in that last article the fellow wrote. He said I got mad, strong. I get mad at myself because I forget, don't talk plainly, except, it's a long stage, but I never was the same person afterwards. Once you have an experience, once you have it, it's totally authenticated. And also, I know this. I know it's a knowledge, and it's a knowledge that you're a part of the universe. That you're a part that the universe and you are not two alien things. As some of the mystics says, it's a world out of which we cannot fall. See, be not afraid of the universe. See, it's a sense of oneness. See, and also at that time a sense of being subjected, not subjected. Being in the grasp, of a power much larger than me, and alien to anything I can call ego. I need you to talk a little bit to get words. I need words. I know what words you use. See, to get it. That's what I'm trying to do. See, we're talking to your nervous system. We're not talking to your cerebral hemispheres. Are you very well? Who are your poets? Or what do you
I've quite a background in reading and study along the lines of mysticism, poets. Have you ever read a book by Morris Buck called Cosmic Consciousness?
Right, that's excellent. That's one of the first ones out, now. But on the thing that they've got things in there. The things about, remember when he says, and everything was all right. Yeah. It was perfectly so. That's right. I mean, there's things in there I can nod.
No fear of death.
Yeah, and everything's right. It's just, you see what I mean? Everything's right. Cancer, you see what I mean? Cancer, everything. The things that used to bother me. See, the thing that used to bother me was that was the old, the old nonsense, if there is a God, he's the God of cancer, maybe I ought to be on the devil's side. See? Maybe I want to strike you. No, but now that thing I know. The sense of the light, that's probably the chief one, the overwhelming light I'd have. There are some things that happen to me that I can't now see. When I mentioned about 7 experiences, I now have been interested. I really should have done this even beforehand. And I shouldn't wait any longer if I'm going to set it down. But I want somebody to set it down and let's look it over. And because of the fact that it gets to the point, and I won't be sure. I won't remember. In your own brain. But I can remember there are things like I can remember shooting up. It seems to me that's shooting up like a spiral in the universe. You follow me? I just remember this feeling, and I think it was that night in an overwhelming sense of the bad rap that evil has given. in the lesson, you know, or it might have been beyond the pair of opposites, beyond good and evil. But it was the sense, you understand, of the bad rap that evil has, see? The bad rap that you know, the one the left foot has against the right foot, the up, the down. Now that one I can't equate. See, I mean that one I just remember, but I can't put myself in the graveyard, remember where I was at the time. I can't absolutely tell you it happened then. You see what I mean? There's some things, you know, and I hesitate, you know. Now, are you familiar at all? I'm going to get this water. Okay. And now I'm giving you just this next. You understand? Like this thing of like shooting through a spiral. See, this is something I'm telling you after I say you. You know, I'd hesitate. I wouldn't tell anybody to put this in a book right now. You know, because I don't even know when that experience happened. See, there was I remember one other time when I'm shooting, I'm grabbing the things because I'm trying to get them. I remember one other time, like I could feel like myself. I'll show you, like this. See like this? Okay, like almost me looking at myself. See? Okay, like there was a universe there, see, but there was, you understand? Okay, and there was trembling. Okay, see those signs? See, but in the middle, perfectly calm. See? And I knew, and in that, among others, I knew that as long as I helped the universe out, see, and kept the pair of opposites, and was able to contain ambiguity and right and wrong with no solutions. And no ultimate answers, you understand, except the cons. You know, that everything would be all right with the world, the universe, whatever it was. See? Now, not that you found them, see, but as long as you can contain, you know, as Nietzsche said, and that's, of course, the last big boy, you know, going. You know, you find all the big people. Everybody's alive now. It's worthwhile, say writers, you know, in all of them there's Nietzsche someplace along the line. They may have outgrown anything.
I think there's some brewery. Yeah, still got a bit. Yeah, maybe. Let me check.
I'll give you. We'll get some right brain. Give you a poem. Some of the ones, and these poems I had never written poetry. I had liked poetry. Many of these poems they issue from the collective unconscious. I'll give you the example of one of them. And I wrote a book, Out of Darkness, which is probably an excellent document, not as a poem say. Many of which, some of the poems of which I read the next morning.
Afterwards.
Yeah. Well, so I've got one that I wrote right fast. At a time I couldn't write anything. See, at a time I couldn't conceive of it. They just issued forth.
You have me here?
Yes. But let me give you some of them, and when I say them, you can tell them. They're not great poetry, but they grab you again in the. Go ahead.
Flip it over so you don't miss it. Because I think it's pretty near the end.
The lower depths. This is again. Remember, if it means anything, it shunts the cerebral hemispheres and hits the nervous system. So yeah, that's the lower depths. The Lord, I shall not go where I have been, the worst foundations fled, the lower depths of sin and guilt, the land of the living dead. There is a darkness not called night in the land of lost content. There is a stillness not called rest, where the perished people went. The hawk, intrepid, from his nest, on the dark, imperishable hill, implacable eyes and starless skies, stares down on the world of will. Don't ask why that you and I must to hell and then come back. God decrees just as he please. Make or break. Play the man. Act. that came to me at a time when I later, one time I was reading, I became very much interested in the life of Muhammad. See, who at the age of 40, had his visions. And I don't think I knew this at the time. I remember I heard listen. He was right. I've often thought that might have been better, but I didn't listen very well. But I had read some of the favorite of the surahs. Those are the chapters, and one of them speaks and tells Muhammad by the morning hours, by the night when it's the stillest, thy Lord has not forsaken thee, nor does he hate thee. And verily the latter portion will be better for thee than the former, and verily he will give to thee, and thou shalt be content. And the former shall be better than the latter. It goes on, and they observed that this was revealed to Muhammad at his darkest hour of need, and saying the former was not, the latter was not better than the former. See what I mean? And then they said, but this was a revelation from beyond time. Sometimes see, and these poems spoke of a man. I'll give you another one. Beyond the right time. See, I remember reading them at times. But this is me. Let me tell you one that came just a little later. That I had been over to a friend of mine's place, an older woman, not a girlfriend, like a grand. She'd just take me in and put up with me, and I was upset, nervous, and I thought I was going to have a seizure or something, and I didn't usually do something like this. I said, I'm going to go over, and there was a place very close by. I was afraid I'd have a seizure, something public. I was terrified of that. I could get someplace by myself. And so I went over to a bar and I ordered a drink. I'm from the Coalfield, so I drank straight whiskey. Shot of whiskey, and they brought me a napkin. And the next thing I did, I wrote it, and I'll recite it to you. But you notice there's an awful lot of structure in this poem. See, and the first time I ever read this was when I read it after I'd written it. And you wrote it down. I am coming, Father coming, though the night fall fast around. I have kept the pledge I made thee, and I now am homeward bound. Oh, you born me, and you bred me, and you bid me greatness seek, and you cast me into darkness, far below the mountain peak. Half a lifetime did I struggle with dark instruments below, with my eye upon the eagle, and the place I had to go. Till at last I left the valley, climbed the mountain all alone, where the air grows cold and thinner, where you make it on your own. To the peak and reach for heaven, which is just beyond our grasp. Then, like Moses, look beyond there, see the promised land at last. And listen to the heartland, there are others who need more. Help my brother and my sister reach that far, far distant shore. Then return into the home place and let others glory find. I am coming, Father coming. I have helped a bit mankind. See, it's not a great poetry. There's a lot of structure to it. Think how simple the language is on all of it. Let me give you one of Bobby Kennedy, who I was probably as close to as any, certainly the Kennedys. Bobby was one time I talked to John Kennedy, and I wanted to know why he ran for president. What was after him. And they usually, you have to know these people. I mean, you get to know them as human beings. And I said, it's that Honey Fritz. This was the the yacht that they had, see, you know, and Truman had one. He says, that honey fish, you like that honey fish? You know, and one time he told me, he said, just see how far you can go. But Bobby was after the stars. Like he was his father's son, something like my father was. I always wanted my father to say, old dog Trey. Oh, well, old dog Trey, one time, you know. And he had, and then finally his father, I could tell you some stories. But let me give you one with him, and you can see in the simplicity of most of them. Some are not, but some of them are like that. Oh, Bobby, brother Bobby, you are dead, and I am not. The stars have left their courses, and the land we love is not. Aeschylus and Alexander, and 10,000 years to go. And you Ross with the roses, and I trod on in the snow. Past hell and its foundations, past memory, guilt, regret. What drove us then drives me now. Forgive if I love you yet. This earth's just one to live on. But, Bobby, it's where we're from. Can we deny, neglect it, after what we've said and done? You do not have to answer. Now you've measured to the score. But I must face tomorrow, must do what's been done before. But you notice in, and many of them, the simplicity. As I say, and this was at a time, as I say, while there may not be great poetry, if they talk in terms of will they move people, I know that. It doesn't make any difference what the cerebral hemispheres are involved on the thing. I know they do that. They also give me an insight. How well you communicate with people, whether it is to what extent at all you use the cerebral hemispheres, you shunt things. There was one of the ones, I think I added, this is one of the ones I wrote right at I added one stanza to this, I think, David. Hymn to Almighty God in Charleston graveyard upon release. Hail moon, hail sun, hail sacred tree. Yeah, I'm still intoxicated. You can see I didn't get I'm close to where Buck was here. Hail moon, hail sun, hail sacred tree. The sinner now shall hold. Almighty God who healeth me, all praise to thee. All praise to thee. For thou art one, I know, as thou art there above, but many in us here below. Oh, yes, I know it's so. I give my best, I'll give my all. In faith I am assured that from this world we cannot fall. No, not at all. We cannot fall. So let me live, so let me die, a moth unto thy flame, light unto light, to thee I fly, nor question why, to thee I fly. My burden great, my spirit free, a goal I dimly see, Almighty God who healeth me, all praise to thee. All praise to thee. I might loan you.
You wrote that?
Yeah. I might read. That's the second stanza is the only one I didn't write like the next day. So. That's a great time, and then it petered out.
Did where can you get this?
I might loan you that one. You want me to loan it to you? Bobby posted that.
I can get a copy, yeah. When I had read the article, it had said that you said you didn't get a sense of mission other than being a human being from that experience, but yet I hear in the poems you read and all that there's a need to
Probably I did get a sense of mission. Probably that's not the thing to say right now.
To communicate it to other people. That comes through in what you're saying.
Yeah, well, you see what I mean? But maybe the thing is not to say, because it's just like the spiritual experience. The beautiful thing about it is it's the most pragmatic thing in the world. Try it, if it doesn't work. If I can't get to you, if you don't feel it when I say the poems, you don't have to pay attention to it. And that's it. But the worst thing I could do, particularly, say, with the Charleston Gazette. If you read the article, the same article, let me show you, give you an example. The same article.
I was going to ask you, since that article had gone out, I don't know when you gave that tape here or whatever, but I was wondering, had you received any, like I just called you up out of nowhere.
Have a look. With the Gazette, see, that's how much they cut it down.
Yeah, they really chopped it.
Well, but you have to remember, I was very strong, and they considered I'm part of a very corrupt organization, and I was an unrepentant. I never turned state's evidence or said that I'd done something. And they happened to know. They did some very naughty things. But they put it in, see, even it is on page 13 or something. The fellow that wrote the article called me up. He said, "John, I believe you now. I said, what's going on with the Gazette?" But they did little things like this Dr. Carter, who would if Dr. Lewis said something about me, you'd say, "Well, John, you probably write that." But I couldn't write Dr. Carter's script, or else I would have written the one when he said that was totally and permanently disabled. Yeah, but he said in miraculous recovery. They said recovery. But you have to remember on these things. One of the big lessons I've learned in these things, if you start talking about lessons, is that there's nothing fails like success. Nothing succeeds like failure. You learn with the power of opposites. You learn to do like with the Chinese sometimes in diplomacy or something. They watch for the role. They watch for the yin and the yang. See, to turn, when nature is with you, see. And I know this after this last thing came on. I just discovered just in time in my intuition, or I could let you talk to some people. It's much more so. I can ordinarily read people pretty well, even over the phone, where to pick you up and talk to you. See, and very often I've always thought beforehand maybe that I can predict things, and I still say, it's because of my experience.
The experience helped increase that.
And that if you've noticed, I still can laugh at myself pretty well. Probably always will. I probably have to take myself too seriously. But other people can tell you that I can predict things or see things or know things that I can't account for. Sufficient, so even myself, I've got my girl now who is a Capricorn. I'm a Cancer. They're the exact opposite, but who is I'm getting her writing down things. I say what's going to happen, I think, or so. Or I think there's a file. If you go up to State House, there'll be something up there I need to get. I don't know what it is. I go up there, and I can tell you clients now that will tell you. So it's I can tell you religious one. It's God's with us. Yeah, that's, you see what I mean? But I'm just going to see how often it happens. There's a lot more sensitivity. But much of what I do is I say, well, let's get back to the yin and the yang. Is the role. You understand the pair of opposites. That's one of the major things. Understand that there's no such thing. There's no joy. No up without down. And the bum right. This is why the god Shiva, Shiva Nataraj, dancing Shiva. You've seen that case, the 4 lines.
Shiva.
fact, there's a myth. Let me tell it to you. There's a myth in India, in Mahabharata. It should be the myth of our time. And it involves, of course, the gods and the demons. And they decided that what they would do, they would get the elixir of life. And so what they did is they took the great cosmic serpent that wraps the earth, and they took him, and they took the cosmic mountain, and they wrapped it around, the serpent around it, with the demons on the one end and the gods on the other. They started milking, churning, the great cosmic ocean, for the elixir of life, the honey of eternity. And after they had churned for 1,000 years, a poisonous black mist, smoke arose, which always happens. Anytime you go into deeper realms of power, you first find the Adolf Hitlers before you find the creators, the Julius Caesars before you find the Augustuses, the Xi Jinpings before Lin Peng. Always you find the negative aspect, always breaks forth
first.
The destructive before the creative part does. And so this mystical black smoke. And so the great work had to quit. Great work had to stop. And so they said among themselves, who of us will absorb this miasma? Who will give of themselves? So that the work could go on. And Shiva was a great yoga, master of yoga. And I said, I will do it. So Shiva went over, and he just breathed in, and he just breathed and sucked in all that miasma, that mist, that poison. But by yoga, he stopped it, and he shrugged. Not like Adolf did. He didn't swallow. See what I mean? See? He stopped it, and his throat turned blue. And over in India, he's been called Old Blue Spoke ever since. See? And so then, with that, and him still around, so he's stopping it right there. You know, no God written down for him, but the great work went on. See? They churned Shiva right with them. And then pretty soon, some pretty wonderful things happened. The moon came up, the sun came up, and an elephant with 8 trunks came up. You've seen those, you know that. And then finally, the elixir of life. And that, for me, that's a myth for our time. See, we have to learn that. See, and we have to learn through self-control, self-discipline, to take on and give of yourself for humanity and absorb. Of course, but not like we've always done beforehand, you know. Whether we either conquered darkness, and they say, and then all the good boys around, or in the American version of it, you know, we do it and go into the West, you know, we die ourselves, and we understand that we absorb it within ourselves, and that the evil, see, much of what I've found, much of what I've been able to do after this experience was not to project so much, but to realize how much of the projections are outside, and how I'm not a knight in shining armor, and it's all white out there, and these are all bad boys doing this today. So I mean, and how much it is in one of the poems is lesser war with an army, lesser war with an enemy, greater war with yourself. That's where the battle's fought. For tomorrow's hero, the battle's fought within. That's the great battlefield.
Let me ask you, because this occurs to me right now, do you have any ideas how someone like myself or anybody could get to that point that you got to?
Well, the first thing to do what you're doing right now. Follow your fascinations. Follow your fascinations. Dream in them. Let me give you an example in this thing. You know, we're talking on the thing. You might say to me, I want you this part remember, this part don't erase. But I just it came across to me last week. And I would like to, particularly for religious people, in this PM magazine, would hit the people. I wanted they wanted to get in a little on the spiritual aspects of it, and I didn't. I said that I don't know. That's what occurred to me. I didn't get into much. That I don't know whether I was brain damaged, I was hungry, I was under great stress. I don't know whether or not it was caused by the fasting. And then I just suddenly realized that, it may be true. What if it isn't true? That Jesus literally died on the cross, literally descended into hell for 3 days, literally arose and ascended into heaven. It may or may not be literally true that the Egyptians went into Egypt, fled Egypt, went down through the waters, and after the wilderness went into Canaan. The resurrection and the Passover, they're celebrated on the same day. They're the birth and the death of Adonis. It was celebrated 4,000 years before the Israelites ever even came along. See, what difference does it make what that experience occurred? What caused that experience, or where it was, or whether I actually saw it, or whether I dreamed, see, or whether I've reconstructed it now, or whether I'm making it up. What is important that man and his soul goes into the abyss, goes into darkness, into death, finds something, comes out with it. See? When you find that, and when you find that, it doesn't make any difference what happened yesterday, or what's going to happen tomorrow, or what the world has for tomorrow. Let tomorrow take care of itself, and them that want it, find it. You've got today now. And when you live in that here and the now, a certain centering takes place. And then anything like that. That's the experience. And if you look for it, you'll find it. Or, as you'll soon find out, if you don't find it, God finds you. You don't search for God. God finds you, find it. Take comfort. God said to great Pascal, take comfort. Thou would not be seeking thee, hadst thou not found. You will find in the search all your fascinations and engross yourself, I would say, with paradox. With the pairs of opposites. I think as you do that, you have to go beyond them, But something, my experiences, as I say, was an experience that I didn't achieve, that I didn't have thrust on me, but that phrase is on, helps out, But it's an experience, and it's an experience when I can read things from Buckle, and I can say, yes, I understand that. Remember I told you, like with the lights, all that, that's usually, I can't say, and I like that. That'd be a nice idea. Like that, see? But I didn't, see? And I'm afraid if you'd asked me a couple of years from now, I might have seen it. I often wonder, don't you come back and you keep this recorded and see if I can remember. But it's like the thing. Remember the thing I told you about this, and the shooting through, and this is beyond words, But it was just something I was telling, like I was shooting through a style, that the thing I would never forget, was the bad rap, was to vindicate evil, or you vindicate bad. I can't, to try to say it, almost, but I can't put down. I can just remember this, that I have this. When did this happen to him? I can. I just know that experience happened. I don't remember when I first remember having it, and I don't know how I could have conceivably had it. I don't know where I could have been. You know what I mean? There are things like that, that I associate with the thing I told you about, the pair of opposites, And much of it are very simple little metaphors. There's something to metaphor. There's something to it. See, because it takes, there's something to metaphor as against simile, There's something to that it takes you to see because it points. And remember, as the Zen say, remember if you face the finger pointing at the moon, don't stare at the finger. See, look at that moon. But in that experience, you can, as I say, I have a sense, you see what I mean? But of course, it's such an overwhelming. You have to remember, you go through something like I've been through, and to the extent that I'm more so mentioned to other people, it'd be pretty hard for me to go back and buy me another 13 airplanes. So I mean, I might be afraid to, but to buy a car. You see what I mean? But to the extent that I do it, I pretty much plot my own path. It's got to be. I know you have to conquer yourself. I have to get myself out, because remember when you start out, particularly in Charleston, West Virginia, you have to remember here's somebody who didn't lose their license because they were clever. Lost their license because it's crazy. Brain damage, you see. Well, it's pretty hard to see when you're going to get people to come back to take that. See, this is one of the things where, with publicity, is sometimes, like with the Gazette or something, you have to go from the outside in. See, in America, Max Weber, the great German, he turned the century. He talked about the charismatic personality and leadership. It's the biological thing in politics. The appearance. They call it the charismatic person. But one of the ways you do that is because of their, perhaps genetically, and I'm talking now on social biology, and their primate thing, potential. If you get attention. See, the one thing if you're in trouble, say with the law or something, if you can just make enough noise and get attention, if you have those capacities, you sometimes can get out of it. See? If you can do that, the attention, and sometimes with myself, I made partly with this, to get the attention, you have to watch what you do with the thing, because a pair of opposites get you right past it, Charleston, West Virginia. But it's first to get myself out of the darn thing, then do something with my life. I have very definite things, and I know definitely what I would like to do. I know what a life's work I'd like to do. I know one major thing. I've things I want to do. I've already made written speeches for. But it doesn't mean, you understand? And very long. One of the things I did that will help you very much. You might get Joseph Campbell. Give her, won't you write his name down? You'd call him a mythologist. He's the wisest man there to go there. He wrote with 1,000 Faces. It's in a paperback book. Joseph Campbell, Myths to Live By. Get that, read that. He's written a thing called The Mass of God. Think of myths as other people's religions. Say spirituality. And that's one of the first things that I did when I came back. If I would tell you the unbelievable coincidences, things now that have been verified, just goes on and on. Sometime later, I could tell you with the. Let me give you an example. You ever heard of Gene Houston?
Yeah.
Gene,
seminars.
Okay, well, Gene's one of the big people going in the world. If you want to meet 10 top 20 interesting people, I wouldn't have any questions. You'd be in it. And let me just give you an example. Remember, let me give you this one. I went to a seminar of hers, and I told this story that I'm about to tell you. What we did, we celebrated the Asclepian night. The god. Remember in Socrates, in the death, Plato's death, when Socrates dies, he says, "Our Asclepius." Remember, well, that's the god of healing. He'd been healed of life, But anyhow, what they we reenact these things, see, and this, it's ribald, it's various ways. And one of the last things you do is everyone dresses in white, and you sleep all common array with, in head to head and foot to foot. And then you have a great dream, and the great God of Scepulus wishes you a healing dream, a healing of the pocketbook, of the soul, of your hopes, whatever it is. But one of the last things you do is tell miracles. So I went up and I told this story that I'd been a bum, and I had finally, I had thought, well, what am I going to do? And one of the things, what am I going to do? Because everybody thought it was hopeless. And see, the big thing got me, I knew brain cells could regenerate. And I knew that I essentially knew how it progressively got worse. So, this is the mind, I'd push it down. So, and my thought was, even when I'm talking to the doctor, it was almost like whistling in the graveyard. I'm going to get out of here, get on my, get off the streets, get in a place, but what am I going to do? So, what's my step? How am I going to recuperate? How am I going to do it? What's my plan? I'm a very practical person. So what had happened, I had this notion I'll be a healthy animal. Remember me telling you that? But so anyhow, what had happened after I had this experience, I finally got off. I got into the Spring Hill Apartments, and it's Roseberry Circus. It's right adjacent up there at the graveyard. We go up there, and I'll let you go by and you'll see him. And I got in the 6th floor in an apartment that was facing almost where I could see, where I'd been, certainly right out there. And so what I had done, I had my home styrofoam rebel scene, just a few things, but somehow I had picked up and got, this is within weeks or so after the graveyard experience. See, I'd have to, within a month, I got off the streets, maybe within a week. And I'm up there, and I remember coming in that night, the tears, to get off the street, what that is, close that door. You can't tell that. And somehow, but I ended up with the black and white portable TV set that I had purchased for my wife, ex-wife, at the time, some time ago. And I ended up with that there. See, of course, remember that. So the next morning, I'm going to get up, and that's my first day. See, and whatever I'm going to do. Okay. I hooked the thing up, and it didn't have the HBO, but it took the 3 stations, and I think it took a public television or something. And the next morning, around 6:30, turned TV on. And this was at the time, I think it was CBS. And before the religious programs preempted everything, early in the morning, they used to have Sunrise Semester. Yeah. Okay, and there was one by Hazel Henderson, who was a futurist, economist and futurist, about alternative futures. And she had as her guest Jean Houston. And Jean Houston, and she was to talk on conscious raising and the way historically the way men have raised their conscience and changed their conscience. Okay, and when I come on, I turned the thing on, and she was telling the story of walking the dog with Mr. Terry. And if you want to run into, I'd rather let you find out what that's about. You run into her in time. You never want to miss going on. You want to go to. She's the most powerful speaker probably in the world. You don't want to miss like going to one of hers. I can show you. And go to one way you can go for over the weekend, and then for usually they have one. Then she goes maybe about 80 of them, 90 of them. They go to some other place, for about 4 or 5 days. That's the workshop. Then it's at one of these. And so she's on, and I start watching. And as I'm telling her, I said, I know, you on. I'm telling the story, with my gown on, escaping it. And I said that I'm sure that I didn't say it right, but it seemed to me like you started weaving your hair, and your hair started flowing like a banshee. You remember that, backwards and forwards, And I said, and you said that throughout the ages, man, in order to change his conscience and change himself, and heal himself, have done many things. They have spun, they have danced, they have held their breath until they can't stand it. See, and they've gone on, and this was all vindicated. What essentially, remember when I told you when I said I'll be a healthy animal, what I should do, And I started off on that, with her. I would go, and before I could read, and I would get rocks. I would spin certain ways, stop, get a rock, look down, and remember the infinite amount of directions and rocks, in formations of nature. I would read from them the barks of trees. This is what I did. I can literally tell you, you can see why I hesitate, to a certain extent, And I told her, I said, I know that didn't really happen that way, but I want to tell you that because of that, and I'm now here, this is my story to her. And finished it. Well, that thing was on tape, at the time, it's still on tape. And of course, this doesn't really mean that much, but maybe it does. And she said, well, let me tell you the rest of that story. She's a journalist, as you think, so shall she be. And the print media, is telling the story bad, they're all telling the story bad. The print media cannot inherently, because the print media has to tell the word. And as Thomas Mann says, the word to kill. The word kills. You understand? And you have to put the healing, you shoot the air as true. Because if you're going to talk about somebody, you've got to distinguish them. And you distinguish them by telling what's wrong with them. Pretty well. Most descriptions, And Thomas Mann, if you want to be a great journalist, a great writer, you shoot the air truth, but you put the bomb of compassion. Well, the bomb of compassion takes a lot of material. But as I say, the word just has to do that. I think this is why always the print people can never take it where the story of good can come, from TV. That's where it's going to go. And we have to have it now. Because the world, as we know, is much what we think it is. And the old Kuwait, I began to find out that very much is true. Every day in every way, I'm getting either better and better or worse and worse. That much happens. That's we know that far too much now psychologically. But and we're getting that. But as I say, and the word is to Jean. She's beginning to realize, there's old hag of it, so she can show you miracles. So what? Anybody can do that. So she's got to get out and tell the story of good, not to the true believer, but to the emptiness. She's got to spread the word. See, which I think this thing about me with TV will have some effect on it. It's got to. It's the big reason why if you want to know truthfully, why I want to get the voice. When I say I want to be the greatest orator, that's really even with the word. I want to be able to do it, get it across, and I know I can pretty well. I know you have to. I know your voice has to have very much resonance in it. I know there's something connected with that. I know unless you're doing that, you can't get it across to you. And if there's a certain resonance, and if you begin to train the person in a vibratory thing in there, you can begin to communicate. And then when you listen to that, when you listen to the what we've talked about, it won't make any sense. And you say, well, that was fascinating. See, but one thing you can start doing, turn it over to where I started saying the poetry, where it trains you. See, and then it'll pick up again. And there's some keys that I've discovered. I know that. I know that. I'm going to begin to see him there. And I think he may be. And this monk's concept, see, was great. And many people felt that at that time St. Francis of Assisi was the new man. No, not the way we think of him, see. See, you have to remember, St. Francis of Assisi was almost the last, of the Europeans who attempted to work the thing out within the system. See, when it was Luther and them, you're tearing the whole thing down. See, or with Galileo. See, everything, beginning to tear the whole structure down. St. Francis of Assisi tried to rebuild Mother Church. Remember when he was in there and said, rebuild this church, and he thought it was his local church he had to build out. See? But you have that. I think very often, though, that age has come upon us now. I'm going to get back to what we said on the Aquarian age. If you remember, the Pisces are two fishes. The Christians accepted this. Good and evil. Bad and evil. Let me have the book for it. And, now the Aquarian Ages. If you think about the Aquarian Ages, which is held by Pegasus, the wing, that holds the Aquarius Age. And if you remember, the Aquarius is the water bear. And if you remember, the water bear is what we think of the unconscious or beyond good and evil. And you see the bombs. You see, each of these things, see, they have symbols. Tell us on the thing. And when I said the thing about the bad rap, another word with a stronger thing that didn't feel was the affirmation of evil. That's a stronger. It came. If you hear this, this is full of symbols. Full of, you want to get messages from it, say. And when you read this, if you read this, the more you read it, and remember, much of this came from the collective unconscious. So you can learn as much as I can from it. It's called Athanatothel, Agnostothel. It's Old Greek for the unknown God, taking the St. Paul, famous all. The unknown God.
You're reading the Greek.
Okay, now. Listen to the tone, the beat of this. I am the voice of the symbol. Listen, all you who would know. Parsifal, Merlin, and Wotan, wandering Jew and Negro, of the old king who was suffering, wounded, powerless to die, of the stone grave where the hero meet to plan ventures on high, aged old child of the mother, cleft spring where madmen must drink. Lo, heed the voice of the symbol. Listen, don't ask, and don't think. Now ends the age of the fishes, darkness at war with the night light. Pegasus brings water bearer, ridden by El Kidder, the Black Knight. Kidder, the loner, the stranger, Gog and Magog he'll defeat. There on the plains, Armageddon, Comforter, Self you will meet. Conscious, redeemed by unconscious, left side of brain by the right, secret of the golden flower, marriage of day with the night. War not for me in a Vietnam, damn not another man's sin, seek not for me in the heavens, I'm the still small voice within. That's one that I didn't hardly write, did I? Listen, the service to growl. He who would read my works know me entire. Are you beyond guilt, regret, and desire? Resolved to do whatever God may require. He who is near to me is near the fire. Pursuing true self higher and higher. Your life to stand as truth's indemnifier. To be the people's great simplifier. He who is near to me is near the fire. Being your own judge and crucifier, endless inner trier by that judge of ire, pain for mortal things your purifier. He who is near to me is near the fire. No charted ways, no rest, no time to tire. Alone, always alone, your crests transpire, your death alone, your life sanctifier. He who is near to me is near the fire. But you sense the thing. I have no doubt that when I think of myself often now, I think of myself very much as a leaf. We're all leaves on a tree. That not that men did not come down from heaven, that the human beings sprung from the earth, with a bouquet of the earth, with the leaves on the trees. I sense that that the things I want to do, when I'm here, are not a sense, when you talk about power. See, powers want to do something, to be something. I want to see things done. See, I think maybe I can see things. I think maybe another person, does anyone know to do that done? But what I want to see is to see it done. Things in my life I want to do. Things in the life to do. See, I don't have that sense of power trip. And I don't get blinded so much. I'm very conscious with myself, of the role of things. To watch it, you can ask some of the people that know me better now. They say that it's when John's got everything coming up rosy, and that's when I get scared. I start looking. I start nosing for the rose. It's a good thing to do. And when things are bad and dark as I know it's coming, buddy. This is why they say, and there's about a 20-page introduction in there that hadn't been corrected because it was written partly by a Muslim friend of mine who died, and it was added on to. You can see it's written. But there's some good insights in there. But they mention one thing. This is why I'm probably the only person I know that planned the impossible. Planned to do it. Base my life on it. I've got a saying that in the long run, only the impossible happens. Not the impossible, can happen. You can make it. It's the only thing that does happen. Go ahead and go up to West Virginia University Library, read the world's or the National Experts Time magazine the last 20 years. Compare that to the real world. And I planned that, see, because I know that each step along my life, see, had I stopped, and I had been an expert at one time, you understand? And if I had made my decision, as the experts would, there was no possible chance of doing it, no conceivable chance. But I know that each victory or each defeat changes reality. I know now that there's a curious thing about the human will that's maybe unique in nature. When I will the impossible, or I will the ideal, or I will unreality, what are you going to call it? A very paradoxical thing occurs. I am in reality willing something, aren't I? That's true. Yet what I'm willing isn't there. I've got some clue to my mind, and I haven't followed this to her, see, that somehow is a shunt between the two. Because once you do that, each victory you have, or it isn't you victory, when you sense, and you get on the road, each one changes reality, see. And I know in each step, and then you take another step, and another, and another, and it's always one leap backwards, to leap forward. 2 steps up, 1 backward, or 1 backward, 2 steps forward. The old classical ways that you make a stunt backwards. Everybody. Jesus went into the wilderness. Paul did. Everybody goes, to do anything. That's the nemesis of creativity is what Toynbee calls it. In history, you always do it. Doesn't mean just because you did it, you're going to be a great man. I was born the same day that Julius Caesar was. But just now, because that I have bribed ward leaders, seduced women, and written poetry, doesn't mean I'll be Julius Caesar. But apparently it's that way. You see what I mean? And that's where you get, But of course, people like myself, I also know this, that I don't have any doubt that trouble's coming, you might say, that we're in a cataclysmic world. As one scientific paradigm falls, another arises. As one establishment class falls. The big things about the 60s, that the young people learn is the lions don't have any teeth. So, and so there's, as one's falling, it's sowed, and there's a new one rising, Is that, as I say, is that I'm sure, I'm sure of that, and I sense the thing, But I sense it, when I say I sense the thing, you can discover it as well as I can. See, I know that history, that reality always leaves the experts far behind. I know that, see, so I'll take that step and do it, see. You could do it just as well as I can, but it won't happen, it's impossible. See the difference? There's nothing I've invented, anything I'm talking about, everything I've discovered, and it's just about like when you said that Columbus discovered, the New World. Well, the New World had been there. The people that were in the New World, you didn't need to discover it. It was there if anybody finds it. Anybody wants to go there can go there, and they do it all the time. And that's probably the important things. Some of the things was me. I think that's the importance of telling, the story. That's the importance of making something out of my life, or going in that direction, or trying to embody what I'm saying. And it's much, much more difficult, see, to make a buck, in the short run. When there's things you will not do, see, but because of the very reason I just will not do it, I'd be sometimes maybe terrified to. But it's just some things I could not do, and I destroy myself. I know this. It's and I have to evolve, and sometimes that's where I can help out a lot. I can save a lot of people a lot of extra steps, and you can try them because it's ever works for you. It works, It does, but as I've seen that, I give people, and very often what they do, they will. They want to be close to them, to do it. Well, they can do it as well as I can. Remember that advertisement, somebody from Maxwell House Coffee or somebody, and Folger's Coffee? She said, well, you can do it as well as I can. But people don't want to do that. I think that's what heroes are. People feel as though they have something that they want, and that they can identify with them. That's why we sometimes identify with, But, whatever it is, what I'm well aware of, I'm well aware of the things that we're talking about. I didn't invent, it's one of the better things about using the old myths and symbols. See, it keeps yourself from getting wrapped up and thinking you thought this out. See what I mean? Or that exists for you. A man, if I was your age, I'd carry 2 coins in my pocket. I'd carry one in my right hand, I'd carry a coin that says, the world, the universe made it for me and me alone, and that is true. It is. There's nobody else. It's waiting just for you. I'm serious. And I carry another one. Says, I'm with dust and ashes. And that's true. It's a strange irony of life. There's a Indian story. And it talks about a magician. I won't get into it now. It's a tremendous story. Sometime remind me, I'll tell you about it. But the magician's name is Terra Joy. And I thought, what a name for life. See, there's this joy, pure joy that's just there, see. And there's this stark terror. I can right in the midst of, catching something, having something, that I know is worthwhile. I can look in people's eyes, get cancer and die hideously, because I think it's a waste. And it's both there. Could be gnawing inside of me right now, maybe doing it, maybe causing the effulgence, death. That's I might be the bright flame, if you like rub up a ball, put it in an ashtray, light it up, you will notice it fights, and when it reaches its height, that's the next time when it goes down. Watch that with the flame. See, there's this strange thing in life, but we don't understand it. But again, it's the paradox, If you can keep anything handy with yourself, if you can keep that, this is why acquainting yourself with symbolisms. See, as you see as I did, I got myself in, this thing like Joseph Campbell, but don't try to read it like Bull French. See what I mean? Try to get this is Campbell, somebody that understands it. So read those things and do this, and remember that the supreme arbiter, the judge is your own soul's opinion. Always. You've got each, it's got to leave, enter the dark forest, thinking it would be a disgrace to enter the groups. See, what I'm saying, take those things, see, then not split up with your egos, about this or that, and go with it, see. Get you some good metaphors. This is what I did, and go with it, see. Don't split those many hairs along the way. Remember the thing, why is that? Creativity, to create a human being, to create life. Why is it the egg that lays in one sperm? Lay as many as it can, get as many controversies, as many genes. And when you're doing this, you understand, get yourself a broad consensus. You know what I mean? Stay there. And move. Proceed. Follow your fascinations, and go. And remember what I said, to the extent that you can, like with your eyes, I often think that when you're truly meditating, is when your eyes listen. Try to remember that, to listen. Remember in that one phrase, listen, don't think. The rooftop chatter probably doesn't mean much. I very often, I'll get to the point now, I can get depressed, or I can look, irrational. I can look at something and I know what I do. I just stop, and I know my brain. I know what would happen, and I go out and I work out, I run, do yoga. See, that's another thing you want to learn. I can see from Gene Houston. If we're going to live next century, you understand? If we're going to go in the Aquarian age, what we want to do, see, if we want to learn to be able to utilize the other 85% of that brain, that personality. And a basic thing to do not think of the brain there. Think of this as the brain. Think of this, see, as a center of force where the universe comes in. See, think of DNA. What does DNA do? DNA is a pattern, isn't it? It's a pattern. And we think about the organic life, but what it does, it's a pattern, see, that somehow makes other organisms dig lime someplace, see, dig ore, makes these other organisms dig this other inorganic matter, and it pushes them together and turns out products, doesn't it? And the DNA is just as inorganic as it is organic. Yeah, isn't it? See? And think of yourself as that. Think of yourself almost as a center of force, see? And if you think of it as a center of force, all the center of force is, and get your Einsteinian physicist to tell you, center of force is a force only because of everything around, and that's somehow what the psyche is. See? And what you do, what you tune into, I feel certain that, say, telepathy is not so much me reading your mind as one mind, as a mind having a thought. See the difference? Some ways.
Same mind.
It's the same mind having the same thought. See, and I suspicion very much, see, it's the same mind that's had the thoughts over and over again. Takes on clothes, as they talk about, puts on bodies. As Brahma puts on bodies and throws off bodies. The same thought. This is why you can have the same idea. See, and this is where Aurobindo, is correct when he talks. When we think of the world, see, as inorganic matter, is now finally beginning to be conscious of itself. See, one time I was running. And since I had moved in there by the graveyard, see, I had fixed up, it's almost a 2-mile drive. And I was running there one time, and I was going up the grade, and suddenly I was aware of the fact that I am the present state of the universe. Right there, running, see. I am the universe. Everything's in me. See, it changes everything. See, it's the hologram. And so I suddenly realized that. And I am the universe right now. Everything that's ever happened. As I began to, I had, forgotten or didn't know anything. I didn't even know they went to the moon. It's almost unbelievable. I think I went through that. That was one of the lowest points. I didn't know they'd gone to the moon. I remember one time seeing a picture. It must have been on the front of Time or Newsweek. It must have been, there was just very distinct pictures. I remember looking at that and saying, was that a mock-up? But it never occurred to me. And remember, I missed the greatest thing in the history of the world, the history of the universe, at least this corner of the universe. But when I started studying, I was just mad for knowledge. And I began to realize that, to make me, the higher elements, that you had to have a supernova. It had to be, the engine. And I began to realize how one part of the universe brings other parts in. That's the big DNA out there. You see, that's the laws of the universe, that Einstein, that's just another DNA, And begin to realize that, put that together, see? And when you do that, everything becomes a metaphor. And you stop and say, what means I? And you can do that. What does it mean to say I, not me, it? And what am I? What would I want? What would I want to be eternal, immortal? I'd like to see the things done. I want to be sure that's done. That's got to be done. As I more and more see that, and I more and more sense that also is a strong sense I have that the spiritual concept of being made in the image of God, created in the image of God, or the spiritual man, is the man that survives. His survival of the fittest. So you have to remember, I am a survivor. How would I come out with all these spiritual notions unless they worked? And worked a lot better, than the Hobbesian world that I was down in, And remember my poem. Don't ask why that you and I must to hell and then come back. God decrees just as He please. Make or break. Play the man. Act. And why do I grab on to these spiritual things? Well, I'm terrified if I don't. They must inherently be powerful things. And see, and what we always have to do, all these times, we have to take intellect and experience, brains, as far as we can go with them, see. And when they cease we must, see. We have to reach on the broader powers of intuition, the great wisdom of the race. See? And if we've hit it right, we will survive. What's worth will survive. And if we betray it, I think this is when we do become egoistic, and we betray a deeper self and a deep truth. This is why, as I say, things that have happened to me that times terrify me. I know it's for real. I know it's so. What do you do with it? You take a chance sometime when you're real tired, late at night, you've been in a trial since 10 o'clock, somebody calls you up and you go to the wrong... oh, they hit you. Okay, we better go.
Thank you for listening to this edition of Journals of Spiritual Discovery. I'm your host, Sean Nevins. For more information about today's guest, as well as more interviews, books, and other resources, go to spiritualteachers.org. That's spiritualteachers.org.